Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Wanderers, the podcast where we explore the mysteries of philosophy, psychology, and the unknown. Before we had telescopes, before we understood the mechanics of the universe, we had myths, we had symbols, and we had the stars. The Hellenistic world gave us astrology as a structured system, a way to decode fate itself. But was it ever meant to predict the future? Or was it simply a mirror for the soul?
Hi, I'm Nono. Tonight, we unravel the lost wisdom of Hellenistic astrology, where philosophy, mathematics, and cosmic storytelling collided. And maybe, just maybe, we'll see the stars differently by the time we're done.
Okay, so astrology, I think we've all seen our horoscopes,
Well, yeah.
telling us what our day is going to be like based on our star sign. Some people really believe in them, but others just think it's a bit of fun, right?
Right.
So, where is the truth? Is it all a bunch of rubbish, or is there actually something more to it?
Well, the interesting thing about astrology is that it's been around for centuries, you know?
Ah,
It's not like some new trend that popped up on TikTok or something.
right.
And it's not just about predicting a future like a lot of people think. Astrology has, it's got these really deep historical and psychological roots. It tries to connect what's happening up there with the stars and planets to events here on Earth.
Okay, so like how the stars and planets were arranged at the time you were born influences who you are and what happens in your life.
Yeah, and even, well, more controversially, to your personality and destiny.
Right, but how could that be possible? Science has shown there's no real evidence to support that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big debate, right? Astrology isn't considered a science because it can't be, like, proven in a lab, but that doesn't automatically mean it's completely meaningless.
Okay,
I think for a lot of people, it's more about the symbolism and the kind of a psychological insight you can get from it.
so it's more like a way of looking at yourself in the world, kind of a different lens.
Yeah, think of it like a language or a framework or something like that.
Okay, I get that. But if it's not based in science, doesn't that kind of make it seem like, well, a scam?
Yeah.
Are astrologers just making stuff up to take advantage of people?
Well, there are definitely some people out there who aren't ethical, who use astrology to manipulate people or take advantage of them, absolutely.
All right.
But saying all astrology is a scam, it's a bit of a overgeneralization, I think. It's like saying all religion is fake because you had a few corrupt leaders, right?
Right, yeah.
There are a lot of genuine astrologers out there who use it as a tool for self-discovery and to help people, you know, look inside, not to control their lives or predict the future.
Okay, so how do you know if an astrologer is, like, the real deal then? They all seems pretty confusing.
Yeah, it's tough. You gotta do your research like anything else, right?
Right.
Look for someone who's got a good reputation, someone who's open about how they do things, and who doesn't make big promises that sound too good to be true. A good astrologer is gonna help you understand yourself better, not tell you what to do with your life.
Okay, I can see that. But if we assume there are good astrologers out there, how can people in this day and age, in the age of science, still believe in it if it's not scientifically valid? Shouldn't we be, past all these ancient beliefs?
That's a really interesting question that really gets to the heart of why this whole thing is so controversial. I think part of the reason is that science can't explain everything.
Ooh.
There are things about being human, like love, meaning, purpose, things like that, but science can't really measure or put in a box, you know? And for some people, astrology provides a way to explore those deeper questions. It gives them a framework for figuring out where they fit in the universe, their connection to something bigger.
So it's kind of like a spiritual search then, a way of finding meaning in a world that can sometimes feel pretty meaningless.
Yeah, exactly. For a lot of people, it's not about the planets literally having power over us. It's more about using the symbolism of the stars and planets as a way to tap into something deeper within themselves. It's about noticing patterns, cycles, these archetypes that show up both in the cosmos and in us as people.
Archetypes, one of those. It's really something I'd hear in a psychology class.
Well, it is. The concept of archetypes comes from the work of this psychologist, Carl Jung.
But okay.
He believed that there are these universal symbolic images and patterns that are present in something he called the collective unconscious and of a shared well of human experience, if you will. And he saw astrology as a system that reflects these archetypes. So each zodiac sign embodies a certain archetype, like say Aries is often associated with the warrior archetype, while Cancer is linked to the nurturer. These archetypes represent fundamental human qualities and drives that go beyond our individual differences.
So you're saying that everyone born under Aries is going to be a warrior and Cancers are all going to be nerd.
No, it's not that straightforward. Remember, astrology is all about symbols, not literally predicting your fate. The idea is we all have these archetypes within us, but they come out in different ways for each person. Your birth chart, it's like a snapshot of the sky at the moment you were born, shows how these archetypes are arranged within you. It's less about determining who you are and more about understanding the different parts of your personality and how they might show up in your life.
I see. So even if the stars aren't literally influencing our lives, there's still something we could learn from studying astrology.
Absolutely. I think it can be a really powerful tool for self-discovery, even if you don't buy into the planets actually affecting us. It can help you understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your patterns, all that. It's like holding up a mirror to your soul, seeing yourself from a new perspective.
Wow. Okay. I'm starting to get in a little more now, but there's still a part of you that's, well, skeptical. How can something that isn't based on science be a valid tool for, like, self-discovery? Isn't it just wishful thinking?
I think we need to remember that science isn't the only way to understand things. There are a lot of things in life that we can't explain with science, but that doesn't make them any less real or important.
Like what?
Well, think about things like love, art, music, spirituality even. Science can't really fully capture those things, but they make our lives richer, right?
Does get.
And I think it's the same with astrology in a way. It offers a way to connect with something beyond ourselves, something bigger.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Right.
But I'm still not totally convinced. I need to know more about how it actually works. What are these zodiac signs and houses and all these aspects you mentioned? How does it all fit together?
Well, that's a whole other conversation and probably one that'll take us a while to unpack. But basically, the zodiac is this belt of constellations that the sun appears to move through during the year.
Okay.
Each sign represents a different energy or archetype. The houses represent different areas of life, like home, work, relationships, all that.
Right.
And the aspects are the angles between the planets, which are thought to influence how those energies interact.
Okay, that's a lot to take in. It seems like there's this whole system of symbols and interpretation that you need to understand to really get a birth chart.
Yeah, it's complex, and it takes a lot of time to really master. But the basic principle of this, your birth chart is like a unique photo of the sky at the moment you were born. And by looking at this snapshot, we can learn a lot about your personality, your potential, your life path. It's like a cosmic blueprint, a map of your soul.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. But if it's so complicated, how can anyone really claim to fully understand it?
Well, it's the beauty of it, but also the challenge. It's a lifelong study, a constant journey of discovery. There are always new layers to uncover, new insights to be gained, and the more you learn, the more you realize how much you still don't know. It encourages humility, curiosity, and a willingness to embrace the unknown.
Okay, you definitely got me curious. So where do we even begin to unravel these mysteries of astrology?
Well, I think the first step is to understand where it all came from, how it developed over time, and how different cultures have used it. Once we have that context, we can begin to appreciate how complex, how beautiful, and how potentially useful it can be. So let's go back in time a bit, way back. Think about those ancient civilizations. Astrology wasn't just about your personal horoscope back then. It was really connected to astronomy, philosophy, even politics.
Oh, wow. So are you saying that people back then were actually using the stars to figure out how to, run their countries, their lives, everything?
Absolutely. They didn't just see the sky as this pretty background. There was a source of knowledge, a source of power, even divine guidance. Kings and emperors would actually consult with astrologers to help them make big decisions, to try to predict what was going to happen in the future, even to make their rule seem more legit.
That's wild. But how do they even know what they were looking for up there? I mean, they didn't have telescopes or anything like that, right?
No, not exactly. But they were really good observers, really meticulous about tracking the movement of the stars and planets. And over time, they came up with some pretty sophisticated systems for interpreting what those movements meant. And don't forget, this was way before we had all this artificial light. So the night sky would have been so much more vivid, just a constant source of wonder and inspiration.
I can only imagine. It must have been incredible to look up and see all those stars and actually believe that they held the secrets to life's mysteries.
Yeah, exactly. And for them, it wasn't just about the stars themselves. It was about feeling this really deep connection between what was happening up in the cosmos and what was happening down here on Earth. They believed that they were reflections of each other.
So it's like they saw the universe as this giant web with everything connected, including us humans.
Precisely. And, that's an idea that still resonates with a lot of people today, even if they don't literally believe that the stars control our lives. I think we all have this longing to feel connected to something bigger than ourselves, something timeless.
I get that. It's like when you look up at the night sky and realize just how vast and ancient the universe is. It makes you feel kind of small, but also part of something much greater.
Exactly. And I think astrology, with its emphasis on these grand cosmic cycles, really taps into that sense of awe and wonder.
So how did astrology evolve from those ancient practices to what we know today? It seems like there must have been some changes along the way.
Oh, for sure. Astrology has been influenced by so many different cultures and philosophies over the centuries. From the Babylonians to the Egyptians to the Greeks and Romans, they all added their own interpretations. And as it spread around the world, it blended with local traditions and beliefs, like a melting pot.
So it's almost like a tapestry woven together from threads of ancient wisdom and more modern interpretations.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that's what makes it so interesting, I think. It's not some rigid set of rules. It's this constantly evolving system that's always being reinterpreted.
So even though it's ancient, you're saying it's still relevant to our lives today.
Absolutely. I think astrology can offer us some really valuable insights into the human condition, no matter what time period you're living in. It's about understanding our place in the universe, our connection to nature, and the cycles and patterns that shape our lives.
But how can something that isn't based on scientific evidence be relevant to our lives today? I believe so much information at our fingertips, so much technology. Should we be looking to science for answers?
Well, science is definitely valuable. It's helped us understand the physical world in incredible detail, but it doesn't have all the answers. It doesn't address every human need.
I guess, what do you mean?
Well, think about things like love and meaning or purpose, those big existential questions. Science doesn't really do a great job of explaining those things.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
For some people, astrology offers a way to explore those deeper aspects of human experience.
So are you saying there's room for both science and astrology in our lives, but they don't have to be at odds with each other?
Exactly. I think they'd offer different ways of knowing, different perspectives. Science helps us understand the how of things, while astrology might help us understand the why.
Okay, that makes sense. But it's still hard for me to wrap my head around the idea that the position of the stars at the time of my birth could somehow determine my personality or my destiny. It just feels a bit too, predetermined, doesn't it?
I get that, and it's really important to remember that astrology isn't about predicting the future with absolute certainty. It's more about understanding your potential, your tendencies, the patterns in your life. You could think of it like a map. It shows you different routes you could take, but you're still the one driving, right? You always have free will, and you get to choose which path to follow.
So it's less about prediction and more about guidance.
Exactly. Astrology can help you see your strengths and weaknesses more clearly, the challenges you might face, and the opportunities that might present themselves. But it's up to you to make choices and take action.
So how does this guidance actually work? How can looking at a chart of the sky from the moment I was born tell me anything about who I am?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, it uses this really intricate system of symbols and interpretations. It takes into account the position of the sun, the moon, the planets, and the constellations at the exact time and place you were born. And each of these things represents a different energy or archetype. For example, your sun sign is often associated with your core identity, while your moon sign is more that your emotional nature.
Okay, I'm trying to see how it all fits together, but it still seems pretty mysterious to me.
It is. It's a complex system, and I think that's part of what draws people to it. It's a way to explore the mysteries of the self, the mysteries of the universe. It's a journey, and the more you learn, the more you realize how much more there is to uncover.
So it's not just about finding the answers, it's about asking the questions.
Exactly. That's what makes it so exciting. It encourages us to be curious, to be open to new possibilities, and to embrace the unknown.
Okay, so we've talked about the history of astrology and how different cultures have used it over time. And we've touched on how it's not really about, the planets literally controlling us. But I gotta ask, is there a point where it goes too far? Is there a danger in, getting too caught up in all this astrology stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, like any belief system, it can be misused. There's always that risk of leaning on it too much, using it as an excuse to not take responsibility for your own life.
There's all about finding a balance, right?
Yeah.
Between using astrology as a tool for self-discovery and not letting it, dictate your every decision.
Exactly. It's about using it to understand yourself better, to see your strengths and weaknesses, the patterns you fall into, but also recognizing that you have free will. You're not just, a puppet of the stars.
Right. But how do you avoid that trap? How do you know if you're taking it too seriously, letting it run your life?
Well, I think a good rule of thumb is to ask yourself, is this helping me or holding me back? If astrology is helping you grow and learn, make positive changes, then it's probably a good thing.
And what's it's in the opposite? If it's making you anxious or scared or making you do things you normally wouldn't?
Then it might be time to step back a little bit. Remember, it's a tool, not a master. It should be helping you, not controlling you.
So it's all about using your own judgment, thinking critically, figuring out what works for you.
Absolutely. And it's also about remembering that astrology is just one perspective, one way of looking at things. It's not the whole picture.
But it can be valuable if used the right way.
For sure. I think it can offer a lot of insights and guidance, especially when it comes to understanding yourself and your relationships. It can help you see things in a new light, see patterns, strengths, challenges, all that. It can even give you a sense of purpose, a feeling of being connected to something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, and that can be really powerful, especially in a world that can feel pretty chaotic and, kind of meaningless sometimes.
Absolutely. Astrology can offer a sense of order, of meaning, of connection to something larger than ourselves. And that can be very comforting and inspiring.
Well, we've covered a lot today. We've talked about where astrology came from, the psychology behind it, what it can do for us, and maybe what we should watch out for. But what's the bottom line here? What's a key takeaway for someone who's interested in astrology but still not quite sure what to make of it all?
I think the most important thing is to approach it with an open mind, but also a healthy dose of skepticism. Don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge what you hear, do your own research.
And don't be afraid to try it out. See what resonates with you personally.
Exactly. It's all about self-discovery. There's no right or wrong way to do it. The important thing is finding what works for you, what empowers you to live a better, more meaningful life.
So, is astrology a science? Maybe not the traditional way we think of it, but it's definitely a system of knowledge that's been around for a long time, and it offers a unique and valuable perspective.
And who knows, there might be more to it than we currently understand. Maybe there are forces at work in the universe that we haven't discovered or been able to measure yet.
That's a really interesting thought. So maybe the best way to approach it is to stay open to the possibilities, keep exploring, keep learning, and see where the journey takes us.
I think that's a great way to put it. And remember, ultimately, the answers we're looking for are often found within ourselves, not just in the stars.
Well said. This has been a fascinating dive into the world of astrology. Thanks for sharing your insights with us. And remember, the ancients mapped the heavens, believing the sky held our destinies. But what if they were only tracing the outlines of their own minds, searching for meaning in the void?
Maybe that's what we all do. Draw constellations where there are only scattered lights, hoping to make sense of something far bigger than us, whether astrology is fate or fiction. This was Cosmic Wanderers. Thank you for listening to us. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. We also appreciate your comments and thoughts. Until next time.